Welcome, everybody. We're back on for another round of Fit Nation's Lunch and Learn. As always, we want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. On today's show, we're diving into franchising in the fitness industry. Now, I think most of us can think of a few franchises that have had massive success in our space. Many of those started from either one or a small number of sites and were able to grow based on the right business plan. So that's what we're focusing on today, is how to scale your fitness franchise. The person qualified to talk about this with us today is James Cotton. He's the Franchise Development Director at Franchise My Business, which is based in the UK. And the key topics that we're going to focus on today are guidelines for turning your fitness business into a franchise, successful practices of industry-leading franchises, and tips for growing and managing a franchise at scale. So whether you're thinking of starting a fitness franchise, you're looking to gain momentum and add some new locations into your portfolio, or you're in the process of trying to get one of your fitness facilities into every city around your country, I think there's bound to be something valuable in today's session. So James, thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Yeah, much appreciated. So yeah, I look forward to it.
Nice. Well, hey, always a good way to kick off. Maybe you can give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, thank you. So first of all, my name's James Cotton. I've been in fitness and franchising now for just over 15 years. Worked with some of the larger brands. So initially developed and delivered Anytime Fitness into the UK in 2010. Then worked with various different brands, some at private equity level, and some new starts in the UK in the fitness sector. So I've pretty much experienced it all. I'd like to think. Opened the first couple of businesses and started scaling that over a period of time. Actually got up to just over about 180 units, about 250 franchisees across the network then. I've experienced a lot in the franchise industry when it comes to fitness. It's a very passionate, different types of owners, everything from investor types to owner operators. To give you a bit of an overview, and I'll delve in a little bit more detail about how they work differently with fitness and franchising as we go through today.
Nice. And can you tell us a little bit about Franchise My Business, your role there and kind of what you guys do from day to day?
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of Franchise My Business, and what I do is support new brands, either brands that have been operating for at least 3 years, been profitable, and looking to take that step into the franchise industry. So some of that's in leisure, some of it's outside leisure. And what we do is put into place a kind of project management approach to turning your business into a franchisor business. And it takes about 16 to 20 weeks. And we'll go through a range of phases, and those phases focus on your product, your servicing, what your offering is going to be, what you're going to be charging, legalities, as well as setting up systems and processes. So when a franchisee comes in to your business, they actually can get into business in a timely manner and have a good experience. So we offer that service. The service includes, it's called Launch, Recruit, Grow. So launching is obviously the bit I've just spoken about. Recruit focuses on recruiting the right type of franchise profiles, and Grow is consulting with you as a franchisor for the length of your business as you start scaling your business up. Okay.
Nice. Great. Thanks for that. And I guess to just start diving into the conversation, one of the key topics we mentioned was that it's guidelines for turning your fitness business into a franchise and generally just getting started. Now, I think most people who are listening probably understand the high level basics of what a franchise is, but maybe as a general overview of franchising as a business model, and then also looking at like who should consider this and why. So as a general overview of franchising, maybe you can give us your take on that.
Yeah, just to give you the general aspects of it. So what franchising is you taking your concept, your business, and you're looking for partners that are franchisees, and you're selling your operations, your business concepts, and you're looking to replicate that. So copy and paste it with a franchisee in either a territory or different locations. And you're doing that, and you're looking to take fees from a franchisee. And you'll take fees in different areas, and normal areas of franchise fee initially, and that could be for your license or for the know-how of your business, including you as a franchisor training them. The second aspects will be the ongoing fees, or call them continuum fees, and that will be for the length of the franchise agreement. Those are typically done in two different ways. There can be a license model, or there can be a turnover-based model. So license is typically flat fee, maybe with some increments of payments coming through based on certain targets, or they can be a turnover-based model. And that's where you pay a percentage of turnover to your franchisor for the rights to be able to operate your business.
Nice. And from a business perspective, like who do you think should consider this as a model and why?
Yeah, so good question. So anybody considering franchising really probably have been through developing and growing their own business already. So first of all, they probably should have been running or trading the business for at least about 3 years. And those 3 years, they will experience probably the ups and downs of what it's like to run a business. Firstly, any business should be profitable to a certain extent. It should be. So there should be some clear indicators that business has been growing. And there's other interest. Maybe they're at the point of where they would like to take the business on, but don't have the capacity to do that. So that's a really good time to start franchising or thinking about franchising.
Nice.
Bringing on, bringing on a franchisee, Alex,
Yeah.
is slightly different, because rather than being an employee or a staff member, well, whilst employees are obviously fantastic, but having somebody with invested money into your business obviously can make a real difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine those can be some of the pros and cons where you're growing the business, but you also don't have as much, let's say, autonomy over each individual site. Would I be correct in thinking that?
Yeah, look, definitely. So look, there is pros and cons to franchising. It's not perfect, definitely not at all. So, the reasons why it's a pro is because it's a proven business model normally, right? It's an effective process that somebody's already been through, and you can kind of skip those first couple of years of learning that the franchisor's already done, and you just delve into their experience. You normally find that banks as well are more friendly to franchise banks than somebody starting their business on their own. So banks tend to work with you. So most high street banks in the UK, the four main ones, or outside, will generally have franchise departments, and they normally cover the UK itself. Plus, you get economies of scale. So if you're thinking, if you're a franchisee and you want a franchise, suddenly, if there's multiples of you, you can start driving down the overall buying price of services that supply you. So you start to make better margins on products. So, these are all good reasons why to become a franchisee. Another one would be the experience that you're kind of tapping into. So if you had, a wealth of experience that you've already gone through, then the franchisee has got a support process that they can work with you on, and that is, the original concept, maybe problems they've come across. You kind of got the hand-holding experience of what you expect in franchising, and that's why franchisors and franchising is so successful. The failure rate is very, very low, versus a business that generally just operates on its own. There is cons, of course, as you said. So sometimes creative license can be a little bit limited, but you'd normally buy into a franchise based on if you have that obviously an active business interest, but you might not always have the creative license that you want to, but you buy into a proven model. Yes, there will be fees to pay, and financially there is, as I said already, but there will be fees that will be due to the franchisor, but you got to expect something in return. I'll give you an example. National marketing, you may pay into a national marketing pot to help promote your brand, and that national marketing pot, you as a franchisee want that to be spent on you in the right way to get more members or more more marketing materials or campaigns to help your business grow. But sometimes there is a restriction on product and services that you can sell. But again, you buy into a franchise because you're looking for a proven model. You are. So there is different aspects. You need to weigh that up. That's part of the due diligence process for any franchisee with a franchisor. And that's something that Franchise My Business help with as well.
Nice. Okay. And would you say there's any common like misunderstandings about the business model that, when you're meeting with someone who's unfamiliar, or you hear this kind of come up time and time again, that you think people should be more aware of?
Yeah, look, I think that's a good question. I think probably the biggest questions that we have is proven concept. So if you're looking to franchise your business, well, there has to be data and there has to be information behind there of why your business has been successful today. So I would say of any franchisor, don't be afraid to actually share that kind of information with your prospective franchisees. Now, just give you a good example. So if you're looking to buy in a business, you want to understand how it's performed, how the business performed, and seasonal trends, and what worked, what hasn't worked. So offering that information up very early in the process, we create something called a franchise disclosure document, and that disclosure gives you all the financials of how much money they've made, how much money they spent, where the sales have come from, and who's the audience, what type of audience is out there, and what kind of channels they've developed developed to be able to bring that income in. Now, behind all of that, a franchisor will normally supply a franchise manual, a bit like an operations manual, but with a little bit more guidance. So if you can kind of imagine tasks like a project plan, and for you to achieve as you go through your franchise life cycle. A franchise life cycle in a plan could be 5 or even 10 years, depending on what length of franchise agreement you're looking to sign. It wouldn't be unusual to do a franchise agreement 5 or 10 years, especially in the fitness sector. A lot in the fitness sector, I won't go into who they are, but typically you'd see 5-10 year franchise agreements with an automated another 5 afterwards. So depending on what kind of model you're looking to go for, it's a consideration of what you believe is the right length of agreement and what the returns are going to be. You want to retain a franchisee, so offering good service as the franchisor throughout the whole process, so they can renew at the right time that suits them. Sometimes there is bricks and mortar involved, so there is fixed costs. Normally, fixed leases are typically minimum and normally 5 years, and they can be as long as 15 years. So again, giving yourself surety of what you're working towards is really important. And then there's outside. It always doesn't have to have bricks and mortar involved, but if it's a territory itself, you may work within a defined territory and offer services outside, or even educational. And that they work really well as well. So you can control your costs, but your overall business might be slightly different based on the level of service or capacity that you have. So it's trying to get a balance. One of our businesses that we work with or I'm involved in is called Rise and Rise Fitness. We're supporting personal trainers looking for to get into the group delivery sessions in relation to personal training. So that's a great franchise to look at, to take a business model. Personal training has been around a long time, but to evolve that with partners to be able to actually get some good returns. So that's a really good franchise that we're working with at the moment.
Okay, nice. Yeah, we'll make sure to put some links to the links in the show notes to see if anyone here listening is interested in that in the UK. Yep. And then hopefully this isn't too loaded of a question, but how does one start to build this business model from scratch? Like if they are thinking that they have this business plan and they want to franchise it from day one, what differences do you think they need to consider versus someone who's starting, well, just a gym, aka a non-franchise business? Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody's totally new and looking to
Mhm,
franchise from day one and it's in their business plan for day one, well,
mhm,
the likelihood is you need to do a decent amount of research. Does it already exist in the market? What are the unique selling points? And what I mean, unique selling points is that what's the experience going to be like? Is that core experience going to be different? It's going to make you stand apart from what's already out there in the franchise industry. Don't forget about the core products. Franchising, we sometimes believe, oh, look, we get franchisees and we can develop, but core products really key. It's a core
mhm.
service, core product. And if you can really nail a decent framework around that, then building out your processes at the same time as you get into business or getting the concept to life, because you're going to need all that information to be able to start replicating your business later on. Devil's in the detail. So going into real detail when you're looking at a space is really important. So understanding what's there, having a really broad scope, broad view look at the competitive landscape is really important. And look, the basics of probably what you've heard before is doing a business plan. I like to do financial pro formas, and that's at least a 3-year plan of what your kind of financials are going to look like for yourself or franchisees. And those pro formas would cover off your typical costs, your income lines, your expenditure lines, and of course the return on investment. You're going to stick some investment in your business, I'm sure, to start
Yeah.
off. Franchising is key for that, but the difference is those costs have already been drilled down on. You probably should be getting best price in most areas, and there might be systems and processes very much like uh, virtual gym that you may be using to understand what the processes is actually are going to be. And having partners like that on board make a real difference to actually delivering something long term. It has to be scalable. So scalable, what I mean is, if we can copy and paste that in the right way without too much hassle in a simplistic point of view, and you've got the right process and pillars for franchisees to follow, it becomes less time intensive for the franchisor. Where you don't have processes in place, what happens is your franchisee is going to be working, the franchisor is going to be calling the franchisor all the time.
Mhm.
Yes, and it'll become a time drain. And what you want is really defined, clear guidance. So having partners to do that is really important. When you have partners work for you like that, it can be a really good match or a marriage for a franchisee, because they can see that defined process, that they know exactly where from point A to point Z and what steps they need to take to be able to achieve their return on investment and enjoying their business as well.
Okay, so being ultra systems oriented is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
I guess
Yeah.
maybe I laboured that point a little bit too much,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's important, especially as you look to grow. And would you say any company can be franchised, or does franchising need to be the goal from day one?
no, I get this question quite a lot. Not every franchise, not every business can be franchised.
Yeah.
Um, we think we can, but in reality, it is every. If you're going to franchise a business, you want to have some scalability in it. You
Hmm.
do. If you can identify the market where, if it hasn't happened before, well, there's got to be a good amount of sales data behind your business to be able to go into that market. If if it's in the market already, then it's probably somebody's probably really opened the door for you, so it probably is
Yeah.
franchisable. My first advice is if you're looking at a specific particular space, um, do some research first of all, or speak to us, franchise my business.
Yeah.
We can give you some free advice, have a quick look at that market for you, and just give you an idea of what's out there, and is it a market we suggest to stepping into. Some markets cost more than others, in their nature. Some industries are obviously bigger than others in their nature as well. So you need to give yourself a good amount of time. We normally do a study. We do something called a franchise readiness questionnaire. We go through about 35, 36 questions around about some of the things I've already spoken about. Is your business already trading? What kind of levels that trading at? What does the market look like? Are you ready as a franchisor? What kind of processes has you got in place? Are they scalable? If not, there might be some gaps that we can work with you guys to be able to gently move it in the right direction. It's always going to be gaps in the business. That's inevitable in life. We always want to improve the business. It's just having a plan to be able to either work with the right partner to be able to get them get there in the right way.
Gotcha. And one of the next key topics that we wanted to focus on was successful practices of industry leading franchises. Maybe we can also look at some of the common pitfalls that you guys see.
Yeah.
But I think we've already touched on some of these, but let's really focus on what enables a franchise to be successful. What kind of things do you see there as outside of, say, like just scalability, things like that we've already discussed? What other things do you see that enable some of the best franchises you've worked with to really hit the levels that they want to hit?
Sure. So having, first of all, laser focus on what you want to deliver is really important. So if you're a gym environment and you're looking to franchise, the key thing is that core product and your delivery is really good and you believe it's really good and you can back yourselves. The next thing would be around what services that you can provide to your franchisees to be able to get them to scale. I'll give an example, having like a service commitment with each other, and having the time to speak around their key areas. An example would be a balanced scorecard. So a balanced scorecard maybe in 5 or 6 different areas of their business, and that could be financial performance, to sales, to retention of your members, to product delivery, and talking about those over a number of weeks or number of months, really having laser focus on those key areas. What I found is good franchise systems do that, and sometimes can be a bit repetitive for a franchisor. But for the franchisee, it isn't. It's really key for them because you're focusing on key things for them that be able to get their business to scale up in the right way. It is process driven again, as you can probably tell, but core product, having the time to work with the franchisees on those key areas is how you scale a wonderful business. Those franchisees will then learn a lot. Guess what happens? Their success, they suddenly turn franchisee number 1 into franchisee number 2, and they'll start taking multiple territories. I'm proud to say one of my ever first franchisees got him up to about 15, 16 territories in the fitness sector. So that gives somebody a real opportunity to grow their business, or their franchisee to grow their business as well. There is the other side to this. So things that I've gone into franchise systems where you've had franchisees that aren't as happy, or happy franchisees. And the reason why that normally is because they're not getting the return on the investment. Normally, it's number 1. Number 2 is they're obviously working hard in the business, but maybe it's not working as well. And maybe the relationship with the franchisor and the franchisee. Of course, there's normally a legal agreement in place, a franchise agreement, but really all that franchisee wants to do is get a return and be successful. So concentrating on their core product is normally what's required to be able to get them moving in the right direction. But there is other examples where a franchisee might not be suited to your franchise or network, and that's making sure there's a recruitment and selection process.
Yeah.
It's fairly defined. I say about territories, but really a franchisor should be awarding territories based on they believe that franchise profile is right for their market or right for their business. They're going to have the energy, entrepreneurial drive. They're going to follow systems and processes to a point. And they're going to bring some flair to it, but under your umbrella. Not every franchisee is successful, of course, but you'll find top 50 or top 20 franchisees, why they're successful is because they follow processes, the systems, and what the franchise or brands about. It's not the reason why it works. When you start trying to change what's already worked is sometimes the reasons why it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of trust is needed from that franchisor or the franchisee to carry out not only like the business vision, but that they trust that they can follow the systems in place and that they're not going to be too rogue or anything like that.
Yeah, look, that's reality of it. And that's why I guess I talk the way I talk a little bit in relation to systems and process. If you don't
Yeah,
have it there, guess what's going to happen?
yeah,
That a franchisee might not get the return on investment. And that's quite a big thing in my view. They should get a return on the investment if they've bought into a process that's defined. That they should expect that. And the franchisor should work for them to be able to deliver that in the right way. That as long as it works for both parties, of course.
great. Yeah. And I remember one thing that we talked about in our pre-call was really thinking about how you can communicate a competitive edge and how to stand out from other franchisees. Now, this is obviously important for any business model, but how do you think this shows up perhaps a little differently in the franchising world? And maybe what advice would you have there for anyone listening in?
Yeah, so having a competitive edge or somebody looking into your business and understanding straight away what that core product's about, what does it do, and they're going to compare you irrespective. They're always going to compare your business with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can summarize your business within a few 3 or 4 words, and you can convey what your business is about, or in a sentence, and get that across to either a consumer or franchisee why they should buy into your brand. That's really important. I'll give you some examples. Initially, we launched one of the leading franchise brands in the UK. There's only 2 franchise brands there. So it's very easy to communicate. Well, 24-hour gym,
Mm-hmm.
franchise mid-market, kind of hits home very quickly. High-end quality finish versus a budget offering at that time. At that point in time, that was coming out of the last recession in 2009, 2010. It's very easy to communicate what the landscape was like. If I look at that industry at the moment, there's probably some 15 or 16 main players. I'm looking at the fitness industry. So you need to be really clear about, hey, this is the space that I'm going to own in that industry. And this is why. If you can communicate that really well and from the outset, it sets you apart from the others. That's why I say concentrate on that core product to be able to set yourself apart.
Nice. Okay. And we mentioned as well, it'd be good to highlight or shine some light on some of the common pitfalls you see. And maybe this is with people you work with or people you don't work with, but you saw the franchise maybe not hit the targets that they need to or falter a bit early. So what would you say are some of the common pitfalls that people fall into when trying to scale their franchise business?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of areas. So first of all, common pitfalls marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Is not having enough resources, or understanding that a sales process takes a period of time, so you need to generate a certain amount of leads to you. What we normally see is a 50-to-1 franchise prospect kind of sell ratio. It's not unusual, and you'll see that with higher price brands. You may even see a higher ratio with maybe a lower price kind of a business and brand. Well, if you need to generate that amount of prospects, you need to use your marketing money well.
Mm-hmm.
So having a broad spectrum, but also having a specific marketing plan that's going to really drill down on the franchise profile you're looking for. Sometimes we can be too broad stroke and advertise here, and here. You might be hitting some of the audience, but your audience profile is probably down here in the
Mm-hmm.
granular detail. So focusing on, right, I need to focus on this individual, this profile type. Where does that lead me to? Well, that leads me into certain marketing channels. That's probably where you need to be. You do. So having enough money initially. I'd normally say to generate a franchise sale, it's not unusual to commit about £3,000 to generate about 50 prospects of the right profile type. and individuals who have the money to invest in your brand. And of course, if you're trying to do scale multiples, so if you said over the first year you want to try and scale between 4 and 8, well, very quickly you can work out what kind of financial commitment you may need to find that kind of right kind of profile.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense? Was that the first part of the question?
Yeah. No. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd be curious to know how people react to that 50-to-1 ratio. Do they think that's super high? Do they think it's low? I mean, do you meet some people who think 1 in 10 is going to sign up?
Yeah. You're probably right. So I probably meet both sides. They probably think sometimes it's lower than that, but in reality, over franchising a lot of different businesses over the years, it's probably where it ballpark kind of sits. Just explain why. So if you get a franchise inquiry, first of all, you need to go through a sales process that give them a disclosure of what your business is about. You know, if you're going to buy that book on the shelf, it's probably the dummy's guide of your business, and it's pretty much what you need to kind of disclose to them is all the financials and everything.
Yeah.
Then you need to walk them down a path, and that's the path of confidence of that your business is right for them. How are they going to work in that business? What kind of role are they going to take? I spoke about owner operators versus investor types. Normally a cheaper base, a lower level base brand in relation to financial input will take, will have owner operators normally behind it. But where you've got a business that may need £500,000 or up to £1 million worth of investment, you normally see franchise types that are owner investors or investor types, and maybe multiples of them. So you may have 3 or 4 owners owning one franchise brand. That's not unusual because they've collected pots of money together to be able to get the opportunity. And then this all falls back again down to your franchise profile, is who you're really looking for, who do you really want. So that kind of process, and then moving into a franchise agreement. A franchise agreement's different to an employment contract, of course. There is some legalities in it, and it works both ways. There's commitments for a franchisor, so what they need to commit to that franchisee. Then there's the franchisee, what are their obligations with the franchisor? And normally we always suggest that should go for a franchisor solicitor. They may have that for a few weeks. So the sales process from inquiry to sell, the quickest really is 6 weeks, but normally we find about 3 months is the sales process for somebody to come into the franchise sector as a franchisee.
Okay. And this is one, I guess I'm more curious about from a personal perspective, because I've had these conversations with people who are trying to grow their own franchise business, and their growth plan, it seems a little ambitious. Now, would you say ambitious, like being too ambitious, or thinking that you're going to have 500 locations in 3 years? Would you say, what would you say to someone who has that plan?
I would say that's great to have fantastic ambition. I would never knock the attitude for that.
Yeah.
The realities are slightly different.
Yeah.
They are. From experience, I think the most that I've been involved in 1 year in opening physical locations was about 48 locations in 1 year. And that had a team of about 40 to 50 people behind that, plus franchisees. So, nothing's impossible. I'm not going to say it isn't impossible. Nothing's impossible. It's all about resources and how you're going to resource yourself to get up to those kind of numbers. I would normally say, I've had lots of conversations like that, I want to get to 3 to 5, but in reality, I look at it in 5 levels. The first level is, your first baby steps, and that might be 4 to 8 franchisees. Your next level is, I normally find you double. You would. So if you've got 4, then maybe you're moving up to, 8 or even 12. Then you're looking, trying to double again. And if you can go those first 3 levels, you've probably got a really solid foundation of this franchisor. Then the level 4 and 5 is what I call those kind of outrageous kind of numbers. If you can push up to above 50 and onwards, then you're probably on good track to do that. Those 5 levels can happen quickly, don't have to be each year. They can just be 5 levels that you set yourself, um, um, based on what resources you have to be able to scale a business.
Gotcha. And as far as data, like the data perspective, what kind of information are you guys providing at Franchise My Business that you feel is really important to position your new franchisors for the best growth?
Yeah, good question. So we look at data a couple of ways. So we obviously see what sells and what doesn't sell across various different sectors. We work with probably about 23 different franchisors in different sectors, and we can probably give you an idea of what your prospect levels are going to be like. We can give you an inkling of the cost, typically what it's going to be like across those sectors, and what you're going to kind of generate through kind of franchising. So we have the data in relation to proof of what a franchisee would cost. In relation to your data, it works both ways as well. So bringing your data into franchising and using that to underpin your franchise sales. So it's kind of a marriage. We kind of expect you to be the expert at your business because it's your business. We're kind of the expert of franchising, and we kind of try to marry those up together to ensure there's a really strong proposition. Almost look at Franchise My Business as kind of a back of house support. So when I said about having 40 people, of course, that's great, but that's a lot of cost. You can look at Franchise My Business in relation to resource to be able to back a house resource to kind of push that franchise element forwards.
Nice. Okay. And I think any topic or any webinar in the fitness industry right now, it's almost obligatory that we need to ask about how COVID has impacted things. How have you felt the pandemic has impacted the franchising side of the fitness industry specifically?
Okay, so surprisingly, when gone through the lockdowns, we had seen an actual increase in prospects. We did through lockdown. Now, the reason for that was, I think obviously a lot of people had time to think about their own lives. We have seen an impact slightly in relation to performance. There was a backing off. Then what we've seen, we're almost back up to pre-COVID levels, not too far away now. So it's been strange in a way. So we've had strange in a positive way, if I can say that. We've had more inquiries, because people have suddenly taken the time to think about their careers and think about, well, you know what, do I need a second career? Do I need to own something? Do I need to be a bit pragmatic about, what my future looks like? Our franchise profiles are really interesting. Probably average age between 30 and 45. It's always that kind of age group. That's not unusual. So I think the franchise arena, fitness has changed a little bit. Very much the consumer is thinking about their safety, but they're thinking about their experience. So experience works a couple of different ways. One, they want an online provision. They want a handhold provision, and they want something they can work out at home or outside. Likewise, they also want their experience still. They still want to experience something with a trainer or inside a facility. So the consumer are looking at it where before, maybe pre-COVID, they might be looking at one or two angles, but now they're looking at multiple angles. They are, what will happen if COVID comes again? Or do I have home exercise available? Do I have a virtual offering? Maybe they don't use it, but it's a nice to have. It's a reassurance. Plus, you'd be surprised how many consumers in the franchise industry want to blend their offerings. So we spoke about those USPs. Well, rather than just the four walls, I think you need to have a virtual offering to your consumers or to your franchisees. And there has to be development within there. So I think it's really important now. So going back to your question, COVID has changed the landscape of fitness from a consumer's perspective, but there is comfort in understanding that those pre-COVID levels have almost got back to quite quickly. Confidence is coming back, but what's happened, the market's opened up, I believe. We've seen the home workout market really explode during these periods, and
Yeah, definitely.
I don't see why franchising and the gym industry or fitness industry as such can't grow the market because of this. And I think it is. I think the next couple of years are going to be really interesting, especially from a digital perspective. And if you involve technology within your workout, heart rate monitoring is really important. Tracking your maps, tracking your workouts, suddenly understanding your dietary requirements and what they mean to consumer and a franchisor. Plus, we've always kind of felt that it's been a face-to-face discussion. But guess what? We're doing obviously a Zoom today.
Yeah.
A lot of franchise my business inquiries, if I told you in the last 12 months, most of the business has been closed and franchisees have been closed over Zoom. I never met them personally, but it's just shown how the world's changed a little bit over the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of different sectors as well. I mean, in my day job, I feel the same way. I meet a lot of people only digitally. Maybe I'll run into them at an event or something like that. But I think the business trip as well, having them come down to London to visit you, or you go somewhere else to visit them, maybe you can just like skip a lot of that and do only one or two like kind of finalizing meetings to just make sure that the relationship is solid there. But yeah, I think that's 100%. We see that in our side of the business as well, that things have just changed as far as how you meet and how you communicate and how you close deals.
Yeah, 100%. I think being really informative and going into more detail at the front end with a client now, and you can visualize that. So I think you have to visualize that. Gives them confidence. And then if you add the testimonials and the experience of your business beyond that, it seems to be winning, and people accepting and buying like that. I think really good, a really good experience for everybody. Makes everybody work a little bit harder, I think, which is good, but makes you think about the detail, so which is great as well.
Yep, nice. And one of the final topics, I think there's been a lot of threads of this already, so we may not need to revisit it in its full depth, but it's all about growth and managing franchises at scale. So we've talked about, I think it was your 5 pillars of how people can grow. So, imagine you're discussing with an existing franchisee who has maybe 2 to 5 locations, and they want to take that up to 20 to 50. If there's anything else, like I said, I think we've discussed some of this already, but what kind of advice do you have for someone who's in that position, who's ready to really step on the gas and make the business really start to expand?
Sure. If you have a couple of units out there already and really want to kind of kickstart the next step, well, first of all, it's just looking down in your business. What has worked, what hasn't worked, and being really honest about those. It is the next step is building up layers in relation to how you're going to get out to the audience. You know what your audience is now. You do. You've tried a couple of things, and it's really homing in and being very narrow focused on those channels. To start with, something that we can do for sure with you, so we can focus on those channels that we're going to get your results. Then get the results and use all that wonderful kind of data that you have and experience of people in your business. We kind of bring that together. Then we go quite hard at it in relation to the prospect numbers. So if we look at those ratios, we put a plan in place so we can get you to, if you've got 3 or 4 units, you want to get up to 20. Well, we can give you a very clear idea how much it's going to cost you. Okay. What kind of resources we would need to put into this, you would need to put into this, so we can get up to 20 units within a timeline that you're looking to achieve. You'll find that there's lending institutes with a very clear plan. We can support those conversations. we can. So some of those high street banks I was speaking about, very close relationships with, because we can help navigate those conversations and also give you a stamp of approval from Franchise My Business of what the plan looks like, when that money is going to be spent if you're looking to borrow money to stretch you and hit those targets. So,
Nice. Yeah. And once they start to reach a larger scale, now just using a name that I think most people in the industry will know, let's say like Anytime Fitness, once they start to reach this scale, what would you say starts to change as far as the business operations are concerned?
yeah, so you've probably been generalizing quite a lot, up to
Hmm.
probably 20 odd units. You need to kind of specialize. You will do so. How your business kind of runs, you'll need to get specialists in certain areas.
Hmm.
For example, maybe business performance or business performance of the business is key. So them getting a return on investment. So maybe you want specialists in those areas. You also find that core product and delivery, you may have been generalizing up to a point. Again, you want to specialize in those key areas because they're going to drive those, they're going to drive certain initiatives for your business so you can start scaling up again. Probably would say interacting with your franchisor is really important. So that would include having franchisees come together, talking about what works, what doesn't work, taking that as ammunition to be able to go again is really important. Getting feedback, because it's not a perfect world. It's not. So getting feedback on what marketing initiatives work, what got the best feedback, what's your consumers saying. So having a broad stroke I plan, then putting a kind of map in place, and that helps those individuals that want to specialize, because then the franchisees are just going to get the best kind of advice going forward and support to ensuring that the business is deliverable. The last thing I'd say here is it's really important to be really consistent with a franchisee from a franchisor, and franchise my business with a franchisor in what that plan is going to be. You must have that plan there. You must have those touch points about either those balanced scorecard or the overall metrics and on what the business is going to perform on. I think if you have those touch points and they're very clear for everybody to see, there's no ambiguity of relationships strengthen, and everybody understands what they need to do. It's when there's ambiguity there, you tend to trip up, and franchisees kind of deviate a little bit from core product and start doing their own things because you're not fulfilling what needs to be fulfilled as a franchisor, and that's why they start deviating, doing marketing campaigns and things
Yeah.
like that they shouldn't have done, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And you did remind me, one of our larger franchise clients in the US, they have an annual conference that they host for, I think, all franchisees. There's about 180 franchisees under their portfolio. So maybe that's a good one to just highlight. How often would you say you should bring franchisees together, or how often should there be this kind of group communication? Should it be annually? Should it be half year? Or maybe it depends on the business model?
Yeah, I guess it does depend a little bit on the business model. I say if it's a smaller franchise network, then I think more regularly is actually
Hmm.
better. So at least twice a year or twice a year. If it's a bigger franchise, network, it's got a few hundred or even 1,000 franchisees in. It's not always possible. So
No.
I would normally, excuse me, I would normally put key personnel in those key territories, or nominated franchisees been
Hmm.
nominated by the group, that come together maybe 3 times a year for a enhanced session with maybe only be 8 or 10 people, but they've been voted in or selected by a franchise network. I would say there needs to be a franchise conference, maybe not annually, but at least every 18 months to 2 years, be the maximum that I would wait. They're great, beneficial, and then they normally happen not over one day, a 3-day events,
Hmm.
or longer, depending on the size of the franchise businesses. Normally a lot of cost, a lot of expense that goes into those. We do them at Franchise My Business as well, with franchisors actually. bring franchisors together to talk about different industries and ideas sometimes, that kind of work. So, but yeah, definitely have the events. It's great for networking.
Awesome. Okay. And one last, we had an audience question come in. It was just about, say, like a book recommendation for anyone in this sector that you could recommend.
Yeah, to be honest, I probably can recommend a few books. There is a franchise book. I can't remember his name. I'll send it to you after, Alex. But what it
Yeah.
talks about is, I'll just describe what it talks about. It talks about the franchisees' experience, and what they go through is the kind of the happiness curve, if you want to call it that. Every franchisee will have like peak excitement normally when they sign up, but they will go down below what I call the normal lines. They'll be quite emotional, unhappy because of spending money, maybe business isn't performing, and they'll finish up kind of midway. What I would kind of, every franchisee goes through this kind of curve, and what will happen is they may go through it multiple times, or they may go through it very, very slowly. You as a franchisor will need to recognize where they are in kind of their happiness curve. And the reason why you want to recognize that is you can work with them in different ways. They might be feeling pressure, stress. You think about their mental health. You want to kind of think about how you as a franchisor are going to interact with them when you know where they are. And that's something I actively discuss with franchisors and their franchisees. Where are they in their process? Where are they in their curve? Where are they at this point in time? That just helps you kind of manage them. I do have a couple of books. I'll email them over to you though.
Certainly. Nice. Yeah. I think one that I feel like it gets mentioned pretty much every week on this show, but it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And when I hear you talking about like super clear-cut systems in order to really reach your goals, I think that's one that always can be threaded into this kind of conversation. So, starting with the small systems in mind and focusing on those, and then that leads you into achieving these big ambitious plans that you have for the business. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, hey, final question then. Where can listeners who are interested in learning more about you and what Franchise My Business does, where can they go to find out more about the work you're doing?
Yeah, look, so the easiest place, hit me up on LinkedIn, I guess, to start off with. James Cotton, Franchise My Business. There is our website. Again, it's www.franchisemybusiness.co.uk. So quite simple there. Those are the two most regular places, or you can email me, just james@franchisemybusiness.co.uk is absolutely fine. I'll get back to you fairly quickly. Okay.
Awesome. Well, yeah, well, hope anyone who's listening in has gotten a lot of value from today. And yeah, if they want to reach out to you, then now they know where to find you.
That's great. Alex, I appreciate your time. Thank you for
that.
Yeah,
likewise, James. It's been a really good conversation. I appreciate your insights.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, this has been another week of Fit Nation's Lunch and Learn. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.